while we're waiting for everybody, I'll run this lap. Just a replay of my hottest lap, which is a 58.9. Um, I think what we're gonna do, I'll play this full speed. We'll get some people in here. Then we'll slow it down. We'll go through braking points, turning points, acceleration points. We'll just go nice and slow through each corner. Um, Ask questions as we go through it slowly. If you have questions, just butt in. Feel free. And then we'll probably from there, I'll probably just join the practice server with you guys and then let you guys kind of do some laps. And if you have questions as you're lapping, we can go over stuff. Um, it's nothing crazy. I'm pretty sure we've all driven this track a million times, but um, hopefully you get something out of the slow mos and find some time somewhere. I think this is just my idea. I haven't really confirmed it with anybody yet. I think next week we're going to do a Motec review. If anybody's interested in that, would you guys be interested in doing that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
So I just feel like sometimes we talk as the coaches we talk about like doing Motec review as well as doing a track walk, and it ends up taking way too long because you could spend an hour, 2 hours just on Motec alone. So I think maybe we'll do that next week. We'll just I'll pull a lap. I'll get a couple of the other coaches. We'll all set laps and we'll compare between each other, and that way you guys can see differences in driving style, how to load up a Motec, how to use it, things like that. So we won't do that tonight unless you guys like really, really, really want to, and we've got some time. But I'm not planning on doing it tonight. All right, let's play this lap. All right, got enough people here. We can go through it. So that's a 58.9. There's probably a little bit of time still in it, to be honest with you, but that's neither here nor there. So let's go through this slowly. Use all the track on the left. I'm turning in before I brake. So that's like the number one thing. A lot of people come out here. This access road is kind of your braking point. The 50-meter board is a good spot as well because that's obviously not going to get hit. I like to use the road as that's what I'm looking at. Um, I'm braking right after it, so we'll slow it down. Yep, I'm getting on the brakes right after it. We'll slow it down. Brakes right there, right at the end of it. And you're just carrying as much speed as you possibly can. You're pointing your car out here. Use all of the track that you can. Let the car roll. See, I'm still trail braking. A little bit of braking all the way through. You can be all the way out here on the green. I wouldn't suggest it. It gets a little slick out there. But you can have your two lefts on here as long as you've got two rights on the red and white. You're still in track limits. Like I said, I wouldn't suggest it. I would suggest being right where I'm at. See, I'm still braking. Still a little bit of trail braking, and then you're off. I'm coasting just a little bit mid-corner to get it turned in, and then getting on power early. So you're not even, you're really getting on power before the late apex here. You're trying to clip this curb late, but you're going to get on throttle earlier than that. Power it out, and I get a little bit of a slide here sometimes, as you can see on throttle. I get a little loose here. You can, same thing, you can use all of this green rumble strip. Don't be afraid to use it all on the exit, as long as you cut back right here, right before the grass. Because of the slide that I got right there, I didn't use it all, but that's where you would be. Coming in here, track all the way out to the right, use all the track. I'm turning in and lifting. No brakes into here. Just a little bit of a lift and back on throttle early.
You liar, you braked.
No, I didn't.
So I was like, just slide this tap. Just slide nothing.
Did I? I didn't even see it. I didn't
Yeah,
even see it on the
yeah.
telemetry.
It was like a 5% or something,
I
yeah.
was gonna say I didn't even see it on the telemetry. That's funny. Let's see. Go away. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, oh, the littlest bit. So, I'm basically lifting there. If you want to give it a little bit of a tap of a brake, you don't need to though. That was me pussyfooting it. Get on the power early. Slide out. Here I'm braking. I just give it a tap, but I am going full and then easing it off. Unlike Faz, I tend to coast through a lot of these corners. I let the car just kind of rotate through the middle without being on throttle. Um, really up to you guys how you want to drive and what car you're driving as to how the car will handle Sector 1. These corners are very much a feel type of thing. Every car will handle it differently. Every setup will change how it handles. So find what works for you. Generally, if you're coasting, you're going to get a little bit of understeer mid-corner. I like that. I don't want it to get loose on me, so I want to know where it's heading. But yeah, I'm coasting a little bit, and then I'm very careful on the throttle application. See, I'm not full throttle yet. Then I'm full throttle. Same thing, I'm just coasting here, no brake. Very easy on the throttle. Very gentle. Still not full. Now I'm full. And the line on these, you're just hugging the insides as much as you can. Little bit of a tap of the brakes. Just to get the nose pointed in. A little bit of throttle. Not going full throttle. We're still pedaling it. Pedal, pedal, pedal. You can track out wide here, but I wouldn't suggest it. Generally, your best line coming out of here is to set yourself up for this left-hander for... What is this corner called? I'm forgetting the name.
Dunlop.
Dunlop, that's what it is. So you're setting up for Dunlop, so you want to be somewhere near the middle of the track here, kind of following, since the track is optimal most times when we run it, you kind of want to follow the grippy line here, the darker line. I come out a little far to the left, but you can get the car back over to the right. I lift, no brake, let the car turn in and get on throttle. And here you can get pretty much on throttle early and then just track it all the way out. It does tend to get a little loosey here. A little loosey-goosey. Just correct it, drive it out. Same deal, you can use all of this curb. Just be careful if you use that curb. Try to get over. You don't want to clip this. There's a bit of a bump here, and you will throw yourself off the track very quickly. So we're going to power that out. Drive it out, hug the inside. Looking at the braking markers here, I use the 50 board. I brake just about at it, maybe a little earlier. Depending on the car, depends on how much curb you can take on the inside of this corner here. So the Lambo eats these curbs alive. I'm taking a lot of it. The Porsche was so careful around it that I was taking a lot less of it. The Jag, if you decide to drive the Jag for the Jag off, you don't want to touch that thing with a 10-foot pole. So you just have to be careful on what car you're running and what setups you're running. I braked a little earlier than the 50 board here, so maybe 70-ish if we look at it. Just a quick tap. As you can see, I turned in very early, took a lot of curb. If you take any more curb than that, if your lefts are over here on the curb, you will get a track cut. You want to avoid the grass on the right. You can have a little bit, as you can see, but any further than that, you get a track cut. Back on throttle. Track it all the way out. Same deal. You can be on the curb here, and you can use the left side. Just want to stay on the white line here. As long as you got a tire on the white line, you're fine. The braking point here is not a perfect science for me. I don't know about Gomer or Faz or you guys, if you have a specific point that you're looking at. I'm kind of going by feel. And it's right about this dark section here. It's about halfway down this straightaway here. Turn in right at the end of the curb. My goal is to put my two rights on the green in this car. You just follow that all the way in. And on the exit, take all the curb you can. Keep your rights on the curb. On the right.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to point out the Degner curve, the first one in the corner before. In a race situation, that's a really easy place to get a double track cut.
Yes. You cut the inside, then all of a sudden it bounces you, and you bounce on the outside. There's 1, 2. Boom. Nice and easy. Like I said, that's about as much as you ever want to take, and in the race situation, you probably want to take even less. I know we're just doing a qualifying session here, but that's what you want to watch for. I tend to trail brake all the way into Degner 2 there. It helps to keep the nose planted. So as you can see, I'm still on the brakes here. All the way pretty much in. And then I'm on throttle. Use all the exit. Tends to get loose on the exit. Be prepared that if you're out there on the green, you might get a little bit of a snap. Just be prepared to catch it. Make sure you don't run off into this grass. Make sure you get off to the right as soon as you can. Now right here, if you guys are really pushing for a hot lap, I'm running a TC3 in the Lambo, and the Porsche I was running 3 or 4, somewhere around there. You run whatever you're comfortable with TC-wise. The hairpin, you obviously want to bring it down as low as you can go without turning it off, basically. So I'm going down to 1. So right here, as soon as I come out of that corner and I've got a straight line, I'm clicking my TC down to 1. Looks like on this lap I only clicked down to 2. I braked very early on this lap here. Most laps, I'm getting it straightened out, and I'm braking right around here, right after the curb. You're going to turn it in, brake all the way into the apex. Turn it in. Get on the throttle early and track it out all the way. Get all the grip you can. You want to get the wheel straightened out as soon as you can. That way you can get the most grip out of the rear. Put your TC back up to where it should be. This is nice and simple. You're just holding the inside. The only thing I will mention is to avoid this curb. There is a massive bump here. I've only hit it once or twice. I have done it on accident. You will ruin a lap. So just make sure if you're hugging the inside that you're avoiding that, and then your goal is to just cut the green. Like that. Just take a midline, follow it all the way in, follow the curb. Right here, you're looking for this access road on the right. We're going to brake right around there, and you're going to trail all the way in. Brake. We're turning in as we brake. We're trailing in. We're getting off the brakes and back on throttle pretty early, right on the apex here. You can take some of this curb. Doesn't upset the car too much. You're going to track out as far as you can. Now, spoon is incredibly difficult. Be prepared to spend a lot of time on your laps just in this corner, figuring out your right line and your right throttle inputs and things like that. This is a very, very difficult corner. The turn-in is pretty easy. You just hit your apex and track it out. The key here, one, don't track cut. So I like to keep my rights on the red and white. I try to avoid the green if I can. It tends to get a bit bumpy in the green when you're trying to brake for the second half of this corner. So I try to avoid that. As soon as you get straightened out here, you're back on the brakes going into 14 here. So there's a point, you're never really straightened. You're just going to have to figure out where the car is comfortable. I brake somewhere around here. It's going to be well before the end of the red and white curbing. What you're really doing is, at this point in the lap, you're looking ahead to this apex instead of looking out here. So the key to this corner is looking ahead as far as you can on your exit. So when you come out of the first half, when you come out of 13 here, as soon as you hit the apex here, and you know that you're going to track out to the right spot, you're already looking here so that you know where you need to brake to make that apex. If you're too busy looking at, okay, I'm tracking out, I'm tracking out, I'm tracking out, you're going to end up braking too late, and then you'll miss your apex. That's what I tend to find with people who are struggling with spoon. You're not looking ahead far enough. So we're going to look ahead, we're going to brake. I'm letting it coast, and then getting back on power early as you can. Sometimes, like on this lap, I'm shifting down to second to get the turn in while I'm coasting in. Sometimes I'm keeping it in third and letting the momentum carry me through. Really just a feel thing. Whatever you guys think works for you, go for it. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. The key here is to clip the apex right near the end of the curbing. The car tends to get loose here. Be prepared for that. You want to be very gentle on your throttle input as you put on the throttle, and be very careful with your steering input. Nice and smooth all the way out, and you track it all the way out. You can put 2 on this red and white, and you can put 2 in the green. As long as you're on the red and white, you're still in track limits. Very easy to go off track there. Now the best corner in all of racing, 130R. Flat out, I'm looking at the 50 board here. Slight lift. Depending on the car, you don't even have to lift an entire way off. I'm probably going to like 10%, 20%. Lift in and then at the 50 board, and then hit your apex and drive it out. Slow down. Lift at the 50 board. See, you can see that I'm not even fully off throttle there. So as you go by the 50 board, lift, get back on the apex. track it all the way out like that. You can be 2 tires on the red and white. As long as you're on the red and white, you're still clear. Very, very, very easy to get a track cut there and ruin a lap, ruin a whole stint. So be careful there. The other thing to be careful with 130R is to not take too much inside curb. If you cut this a little too early and you take any grass, the thing will bounce you straight off to the right. So the most you want to take is a little bit of curb. And make sure that you are off of it by the time the curb ends to set you up to get a good exit. Now breaking into here, the 100 board is a little late for me. So I'm braking probably about 120, just a little bit before that board. Let's see where it's at on this lap. Yeah, about halfway in between the 150 and the 100.
Yeah, there's a patch of road on the right side. It's kind of like when your car is passing by. You can use that as a reference.
Oh, yeah, that's a good spot. Yep, that's a good reference point. Um, I'm kind of also looking at when the track's optimal. I'm looking at this patch of darkness that starts here. That tends to be where people tend to brake. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. But yeah, just before the 100 board. Get it all the way down. Use all the track on the left. I'm not even using it all here. You're going to turn in. I'm trail braking all the way into the apex here. Take a ton of curb. Some cars do not like these curbs. You got to just figure out how your car reacts to them. The Lambo eats them, so take them all. You obviously don't want to be in the grass. As long as you've got two on the red and white, I believe you're still inside. You're going to see it's very common to track cut on this, the second part of the chicane as we drive through. So we're going to get on throttle, get off throttle, get back on throttle. I just lift for that 1 second on the turn in just to make sure that I can make it in. Same deal here. Cut as much as you can while keeping 2 tires on the rumble strip here, the red and white. Like that. And get back on throttle nice and early. Be careful out here. If you track out too wide, you'll end up in the grass here. There's a nasty bump getting back onto this curb. It will throw you out and will slow you down quite a bit. So you want to just track out to the curb itself and try to avoid the green. Use all of that. Keep the inside line. Straight line into the finish line. So that's a lap of Suzuka. Anybody have questions now that we can dig into before we I'll probably play this lap again and then we'll jump into the server. But does anybody have any questions about certain turns that you're struggling with or anything like that?
Yeah, can you just explain some trail braking and maybe like proper technique and whatnot?
Sure. So let's find. Let's find a spot here.
Hairpin, probably.
I was gonna say the hairpin's a good spot. A couple Degners are good spots too. So, like I said, as we go into the hairpin, the goal is to come around this corner as soon as the car is straightened out, hard on the brakes, and your idea. The best way that I've had it explained to me, there's a series of books. I don't remember the author's name. I'm going to kill myself for not remembering this. It's Speed Secrets. Awesome, awesome set of books if you are looking to find some time and get into the theory.
Ross Bentley.
Ross Bentley, that's his name. Awesome series. So I believe the way he explains it in Speed Secrets is the string theory. So imagine that you have a piece of string tied to your steering wheel, from your steering wheel to your brake pedal, and then you have another piece of string from your steering wheel to your throttle pedal. At full lock, steering wise, that string is as tight as it can be. At full braking, that string is as tight as it can be. And at full throttle, that string is as tight as it can be. The only way that you can get more steering angle is to let off the brakes or let off the throttle. The only way that you can give more throttle or more brake is to lessen your steering angle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, actually, I was using that in some autocross events.
Yeah,
It was explained
exactly.
to me. Yeah,
So that's
I didn't realize that's what that was called.
yeah. So we call it the string theory. So you just imagine that piece of string that you can only use so much grip at a time to do one of those three things. Obviously, you're doing all three of those things at once generally. You're on throttle, you're steering, you're on brake, you're steering, you're kind of moving through those phases simultaneously, but you have to use smaller amounts of one as you use bigger amounts of another.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So as we turn in here, we're going to get on the brakes hard. Now if you watch my braking input here, we're going to be braking, even if it's just a little bit, we're going to ease off of this all the way into the apex. So I'm going to play this at like 0.25 speed. On the brakes, full easing off as we downshift, still easing off, coming off, little more, little more, little more. I'm off. I'm off as I'm hitting the apex right on the center of the corner here. And as soon as I'm off the brakes, I'm on the throttle. Boom. This corner is very, very important that you don't waste any time getting on the throttle. So we're going to be braking, 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 turning in. As I turn in more, I'm getting off the throttle more. So as I crank the steering in, the brakes come off, the throttle comes on, and I straighten up the wheel, and I get back on throttle. Now, it's probably easier to see this in cockpit view, so you can see where my steering wheel's at. So we're turning in, brake in a straight line. As I start to add steering angle, I'm bleeding the brakes off a little bit. Now I'm really cranking the angle in, get off the brakes, get on the throttle, just to get it turned around, get it rotated, and then you can give it more as you wind the steering off. That makes
Hey,
sense?
Mike, can you make a comment about the throttle input? I saw where you talk about lowering your TC.
Mm-hmm.
But what if you're struggling with your throttle input and you just get loose with the with the lower TC,
So
and
you
when
can
you
keep
keep
the
it
TC
higher,
up,
you
but
yeah,
you're
but I feel
gonna
it kicking in. Yeah, it's
yeah
terrible.
yeah it's gonna kick in quite a bit, and you're gonna feel it. You're gonna lose some time.
Is
Um,
there an in between, or just get good?
it's kind of just get good. It's just get
Yeah,
used to it, and it depends on the car. Some cars are very easy to drive through here. The Lambo I feel like just has a ton of rear grip. Um, the Maca is very very slick coming out of here. Um,
that's what I'm driving. I'm having
yeah,
trouble with the coming out.
as far I've only done like maybe 20 or so laps, but the Maca felt very very twitchy and hard to get out of this corner and hard to get out of the chicanes.
Those are the two spots.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. The
That's
slow
where I'm
corners
struggling. And the
didn't it
slow
didn't feel
corners
great.
where you lose the most time.
Yep,
Terrible.
yep. So that's really just a feel thing. You're gonna have to just get used to how much throttle input you can give it before it starts to lose it. Um,
Yeah.
the Lambo, you can see that I kind of lean on it. As soon as I'm on throttle, I'm already about 60%. Um,
And the other thing
there
is
you go.
when to get on the throttle. I mean, I see you're doing it right at the apex, but I always run wide if I don't wait that little tick to get the nose pointed a little farther north.
So generally, what that means is that you're probably getting off the brakes too early. If
So
you
I'm
were to,
carrying
if
too, I don't have enough grip and I'm not turning the car.
the the weight is probably on the back
Yeah.
end a little too early. So
Yeah,
if you trail brake in a little further,
hmm
it could be 10 feet, it could be nothing, but if you're keeping your brake input at like 10%, you've still got the weight on the front tires.
hmm
You get a
hmm
little more front grip.
hmm
You'll get a
hmm
little more turn in, and that'll help you on the way out.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's also a little bit to do with the setup of the car. Like this car
Hmm.
currently is set up where it is meant to get some of the rotation on throttle.
Yeah.
Hmm.
This
Yeah.
is it's set up. So yeah.
Yeah, like I said, usually in most cars, especially when I was driving the 992, I wouldn't be going straight to 60% throttle. I'd be very, very generous with my. Generous isn't the right word. I'd be very cautious with the way I would apply the throttle. It would be much more linear um, to go like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, whereas the Lambo tends to rotate with a little bit of throttle, so I'm going straight to 50, get the rotation, and then
Hmm.
as I wind the steering off, get it to full throttle. See if there's another corner that's good to look at. Coming out of Spoon might be a good spot.
Yeah, even turn one.
Like the back half of Spoon, you're pretty much holding it all the way in. So even here, I'm trail braking all the way to the apex there, getting back on throttle. Um, and then we're going to brake right around here. Yep. Now I'm letting this rotate. All right, see, I gave it a little bit of a stab because I knew I needed a little more front grip. So that's a little trick that I've learned from from the aliens that you can do if you. It's not really like a. It's less of an oh shit moment. It's more of a. I feel like I need a little more weight on the front of the car or the back of the car, and you just give it a blip. Have you guys ever seen the clip of Senna driving the NSX around Suzuka? I'll have to find the YouTube video. There's a clip of Senna driving an NSX around Suzuka in his loafers. It's the most badass shit you've ever seen. He's like sliding this thing around like crazy in loafers. But he's as he gets on throttle, he's blipping the gas pedal like 4 or 5 times just to get the weight where he wants it before he gets on throttle. And you can do it with the brake pedal too. I see aliens do it all the time. Where if you watch how I brake into here, I get on the brakes, I ease off the brakes, I'm coasting through the mid corner, and then I realize I'm like, I'm tracking out. I'm not quite hitting my line the way I want it. I just give it a blip, like 10%, just a little tap. So right here, I'm on brake, I'm off brake. I realize I need a little more. I give it a little tap, and that just gives it a little bit more front bite so that I can hit this apex the way I want to.
Yeah, the braking just shifts the weight to the front, right, and
Right.
gives you that little bit of grip, and
Yep. It's and it's
so
it's
you're not
such a
slowing down.
tiny.
You're
Exactly.
changing
I'm
you're
just
changing the angle of the car.
exactly. I'm just changing the weight transfer for the tiniest moment. You're not really losing any time doing it.
Right.
That's a little alien trick that I'm still not great at, but I've learned to use. It can be helpful if it's like I said. It's initially it feels like an oh shit moment, but and in the moment sometimes you're like, oh, did that slow me down? But if you do it right, you won't lose any time. If anything, you'll gain some time because you're on the right line. Chicane's a good spot to look into the trail braking too. So braking here, we're going to brake all the way into the apex. And watch the steering input. You're going to see that as I come off of the brakes, I'm going to crank in the steering. And then vice versa. As I get on the throttle, we're going to crank the steering off. Oh, that's full speed. Let me slow that down. So we're on the brakes, on the brakes, on the brakes. Shifting down, coming off the brakes as we add in steering angle. Coming off, still on. Now we're on throttle. Still not full. Turn. Back on the gas. Still not full. I'm full now as I crank the steering wheel out. So that's a pretty good example of the trail braking all the way in. Still full, coming off. Slowly bleed it off. All the way into the apex. Jump on the throttle as soon as you're off the brake. And drive it out. Anything else you guys want to see?
Do you mind if we take a second, just look at the turn in at the very first corner from that side road in and the trail brake into the
Absolutely.
that part?
Yep. Very, very, very difficult corner to nail. I will say that. You probably can find a lot of time there.
Yeah, I feel like I lose a bunch of it here, just either braking too much to slow it down or not keeping on my right line. So
As I said, you want to turn in a little before this, and then brake. So you're kind of still full throttle, turning into the apex, but you're not braking until right around here. Slow it down. And then right here, you're just trying to point your car straight and let the car roll as much as you can. I'm still trail braking. Still slowing it down. Still keeping the power on. And then getting on throttle. So
your brake pressure is constantly going down from the side road in. I always
Pretty
find
much.
that I get on the brakes hard, let off the brakes, and then get into a second braking set. It looks like you don't gain pressure a second time. It's just trail braking all the way through.
correct. Which ultimately, like on this lap, I probably could have even braked later, carried a little bit more brake pressure later into the corner, and still made the same line. But yeah, you don't want to get back on the brakes because at this point in the corner, when you're in the mid corner, you don't want to be throwing all the weight on the front tires. You just want to have a little bit of weight on the front tires. Does that make sense? Because you still need to be turning in at a pretty high angle to get all the rotation you need. So you can't be using 60% brake.
Yeah, no, I get that for sure. That's anyway, it's just good to see that.
Yeah, let's go in car.
Yeah, I actually do that corner completely different from you,
Yeah,
Michael.
everybody's got a different
Yeah,
line through here.
yeah. Whatever works for you. So
Yeah,
yeah.
because I was watching Gomer the other day, and Gomer was throwing it in way deeper than I was, and we were coming out at the same time. So, but yeah, you'll see that I'm already off the brakes about halfway, so that the car can turn, and then I'm bleeding it off as I crank the steering angle in. I let it rotate a little bit, and then I get back on throttle. And again, the Lambo likes to rotate on throttle, so you can kind of just push it out. And it tends to slide a little bit here, and here you can see I catch the slide. But the key is watching your steering inputs and being as gentle as you can coming off the throttle, coming off the brake, putting more angle in, coming off the steering angle, putting more throttle in, and vice versa. So,
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Hey, Michael, you were talking about me, how I do it, and I think I'm a little more harsh on the steering angle
mhm.
when I come in. So typically, if I'm on, I kind of do it like he was talking about, where I kind of hit it hard at first, and then I'm basically off the brakes for half a second. Because if I stay on them,
Okay.
when I start to turn in, I lose the rear, which is probably just a me thing.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I,
See,
I actually
and
go on throttle.
I tend to, if I try to heavy brake it and then have a second braking phase, I lose it on the second braking phase, and I lose it on the outside. So, and it's funny that Faz and I drive it differently, even though I'm driving Faz's setup.
Yeah,
So,
I actually get back on throttle between turn 1 and 2, then I go back on brakes again.
oh wow,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to use it as one big braking zone and just throttle it out.
That's probably the difference in our sector 1 times.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Anybody else got anything?
Yeah, if anyone cares, I've got my reference lab also linked in
Oh
the
yeah,
chat for this
watch
channel.
Faz's lab
If
because
you
it's
want to.
great.
I think we end up like the same time. It's just
Yeah,
a little
we're
bit different the way I
both
do it. So
58 nines. You've got more time in sector 1. I've probably got a little more time in sector 2. So
yeah, the same car, same setup. So
all right, so I'm gonna hop in the.